Thank you, Fred, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We have a packed program for you today, so let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to begin by looking at the the big picture, and we're going to take a look at the relationship between society's economic system and Earth's natural system. Now, all economic system occurs in the physical natural world, and this economic activities require, of course, inputs of resources such as water, land, materials, requires energy. And invariably, it results, those economic activities which gives us the products and services that we use, they result in emissions of wastes and pollutions as well. Now, the Earth, being a finite planet, has a limited capability of supplying the resources required to feed this economic system, and at the same time, it has limited capability of absorbing the wastes generated through this process. A fundamental question for us to think about as we begin this course is what decisions, what product selections can we make that will help us meet the needs of our current consumption, while at the same time ensuring that the needs of future generations are maintained. Some of the images that you see on this next slide illustrate a few of the impacts of our consumption patterns. These result from some astounding facts and figures. So, for example, every second, 1.5 acres of tropical rainforest is lost. Every hour, several million pounds of plastics enter the world's oceans. And every year, 700 new chemicals are introduced into commerce, and the companies are not required to test these chemicals. Let's take a look at now some of the impacts associated with the federal activities. The federal government, as many of you know, is the largest consumer of goods and services. In fiscal year 2010, it spent over $535 billion on goods and services. And you see some of the other facts listed there on the screen. So no matter its mission, every federal agency operates buildings and fleets. It purchases products and services and uses IT and other office electronic equipment. And the federal government has an enormous impact on the materials, energy and water use, as well as, of course, emissions of greenhouse gas emissions from these operations. So these numbers also illustrate that there is great potential for the federal government to positively impact the environment through the product and service choices that it makes. Let's take a look at some of NPS-specific indicators. These are some numbers that illustrate, again, the environmental impact or the footprint associated with the National Park Service's own operations. I want to focus on that last number there. There are 9,500 purchase card holders, and that number presumably has gone down since there seems to be some tendency towards centralization of the purchase card efforts. However, I think that gives us a great opportunity to think about how can we use those purchase cards to make product choices and service choices that will better influence the environmental impact associated with the use and disposal of those products. So that's what we'll focus on today. Well, what else can the federal government do? I think there is really an urgency for the federal government to lead by example on sustainability, to harness its purchasing power to move the market towards greener and cleaner products and services. And more, as budgets are cut and as resources become more scarce, there is an urgent need to perhaps buy less and to buy smarter. And what I propose is that by buying green, we can meet these goals. We can set an example. We can move the market. And we can end up buying less and buying smarter. By buying green, we can conserve foreign and domestic raw materials, landfill space, the energy associated with securing, transporting, and manufacturing of products that are used within the federal government, while at the same time creating jobs, markets, and revenues, and of course by decreasing greenhouse gas emissions. There is a close connection between the procurement and the environment. And as we all know, purchasing is a very critical function in all organizations. In essence, the procurement departments serve as gatekeepers for materials that flow in and out of an organization. They purchase both products and services, and some of these might be direct and others might be indirect purchases where buyers are buying services of, for example, janitorial services, and those janitorial service organizations then buy the cleaning products. So there are many indirect purchases going on at the same time that there are direct purchases. Purchasers hold tremendous market power and at the same time shoulder big responsibilities. Yet historically, organizations have not looked to the purchasers to support their environmental goals, while at the same time purchasers have not seen themselves in a role of influencing the field unit staff. Well, this is changing with the advent of green purchasing. It really allows for that relationship to better be built around making choices that are better for the environment. Today's course is primarily intended for those staff with government charge cards. However, many of the concepts and tools that we'll talk about today are really applicable to anybody who makes a buying decision or who influences buying decisions. So even if you may not be a purchase card holder or have a purchase card, or make other direct purchases, if you use a product, then you do have an influence on what product choices are made. So I think the tools and concepts today will be applicable to everyone. So what are we not able to cover? Oops, actually I'm a little ahead there. What are we going to cover today? We'll start with some introductions and a quick review of the training logistics and jump right into talking about what is environmental purchasing. Then we'll hear from two guest speakers, Chris Case and Mark Rich, who will be able to provide us with their perspectives of what they have done to green their purchases at their parks. They both have excellent presentations, and I think you will really enjoy them. We will then go to Fred Sterniolo, who will talk about why we should be buying green. We'll take a short break around 2 for about 10 minutes, and then come back to talk about some specific requirements to buy green. We'll cover some issues associated with greenwashing and ways to avoid it, and then have Lorena Nelson, another guest speaker from Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore, help us navigate GSA Advantage. And she has a lot of great tips on how to do that. I'll close up with some other sources for green products, and Fred will close the training or end the training by talking about some resources that are available to help you as you make greener choices. So what's not covered? I'm not going to go into any kind of lengthy detail about the federal acquisition regulation provisions that require green purchasing. There is already a great presentation that's available through the fedcenter.gov that was done a couple of years ago by the Office of Federal Environmental Executive. The URL is included in your participant's guide to access this presentation. And if you require any information about how the FAR provisions affect green purchasing, that's a great resource for you to go to. I also will not have time to cover any kinds of steps associated with institutionalizing green purchasing. All important topics, but that will have to wait for another training session. We do have resources available if you have questions about greening of contracts or establishing EP policies or creating green teams or training modules. That is something that you can send us either an email or ask about through other venues, and we'll be glad to answer those questions. Credit. Participant guide. So let's get started with our first exercise. The first exercise is to get a sense from you on what you buy typically using your purchase card. And even if you are not a purchase card holder, what does your organization buy typically? And we'll go ahead and take 1 or 2 minutes and come back to you. The other thing which I will actually ask of you is to think about whether your purchasing is currently decentralized or centralized. Okay, so we'll take just a couple minutes and come back to you. So great. So we'll go to a few sites to see what you've come up with. We'd like to know what kinds of products and even services that you are buying. So I'm going to actually pick a couple of sites to go to. Why don't we, if someone from Kennesaw could share with us 2 or 3 or 4 items actually that you buy, either using the purchase card or even if you aren't using the purchase card, what typically gets purchased by your organization. Go ahead. So I think I heard paper.
Yes, this is Kennesaw.
Okay.
We purchase like cleaning supplies for the bathrooms, paper supplies, toilet paper, hand towels, light bulbs, the compact fluorescents and stuff like that.
Okay. Terrific. Okay, thank you. How about Lake Roosevelt? There, you can see...
office supplies.
Okay, office supplies. Terrific. Why don't we go to Grand Canyon National Park and go ahead and add your items to this cart. How about Cape Cod National Seashore? Would you like to add a few items to this shopping cart? It's looking pretty paltry. Okay, is there any other site that would like to contribute? Have some sense of what you typically buy? Do any of the parks out there...
National Seashore.
Oh, okay, sorry, go ahead.
We buy electronics, vehicle maintenance services, fuel.
Okay. Great, thank you. Anybody else would like to add? Okay, well that's a good list, and I'm happy actually to see that there are a combination of both products and services, because I think oftentimes when we talk about green purchasing, people overlook those services, and there are various ways to ensure that those services get greened as well as the green products that we buy. So as we've heard from the sites, there are a variety of items that are used by parks and get used. So if we could quickly go to the PowerPoint. So yes, we talked about electronic office products, paper supplies, vehicular services, lighting products, cleaning products that all get purchased by the parks and gets used. It takes a wide variety of products to run an organization, both from very simple purchases to more complex ones. And as I mentioned, we need to think about both products and services when we think about greening our purchases. I didn't hear, actually, I forgot to ask about centralized versus decentralized purchasing, but it seems that there is a pendulum that swings between decentralized and centralized purchasing, and it seems like that the pendulum is swinging towards more centralized type of purchasing. Now, this provides us with challenges, but also opportunities. We want to reach out to as many people as we can about the message of trying to buy green and providing people with resources that are required. With a centralized type of purchasing, it makes it a little easier to find those folks who make the purchases and reach out to them. Regardless, we have all an opportunity to improve the environmental footprint associated with the products and services that are purchased. So what is green purchasing? Well, let's take a look at this one step at a time. What do you think about when you have to purchase something? When you need to buy something, you'll probably have to answer a bunch of questions about the purchase. So, for example, why do you need it? Do you know what product or service can fulfill what needs to be done? When do you need it? Who can provide it? And then there are a host of logistical questions as well, of course. How can you pay for it? How and when will the vendor deliver it? As well as many other details. Sometimes these questions are quickly and easily answered. Perhaps you have to buy an item that you've purchased many times before. So you know who offers the product, how much it costs, and how it performs. At other times, though, it may take a little more work and planning to answer these questions. And you need to more systematically address issues of availability, performance, and price. Green purchasing requires us to add environment to the list of traditional factors that we consider when we make what our choices of what to buy. So what does it mean to add environment to our purchasing equation? Here are just some examples of environmental considerations, such as thinking about what will the product purchase and use do to the waterways and the wildlife. Will it affect the end users in a negative way? How much energy will it consume during the use phase? Will it be easily recyclable? And will the use of the product create hazardous waste? These are just some examples of the environmental factors that need to be taken into account when you think about adding that environment portion to the purchasing equation. So, what environmental purchasing really is about is incorporating key environmental factors with traditional price and performance considerations in your buying decisions. And basically, green purchasing blends traditional procurement and environmental ethic into an enhanced purchasing strategy, that smarter buying habit. We're going to go to our next exercise and take a look at sort of attributes or characteristics that make a product green. So for this next exercise, again, you need to pick up your pen or pencil and jot down some ideas about what constitutes a green product. For this exercise, there are a few parts to it. The first part is for you to come up with just a generic list of green characteristics or attributes. So what do you think about when you think about a product or a service being green? Again, we'll take a minute or so and then come back to you with your responses to get your responses. And so we'd like to go back to all of you again to get some thoughts from you about what you think constitutes a green product or service. So again, I'm going to go out to some of the sites and ask for your thoughts. Okay, so why don't we start with maybe Harper's Ferry Center? Would you like to provide us with a couple attributes or characteristics you think about when you think about a green product or service? And I think we're hearing. No? Okay. How about Timokun? Nope. Don't know if we're having
This is the
technically...
Timothy Reserve.
Oh.
No.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Recycled or recyclable products.
Recycle.
Products that are biodegradable.
Okay.
Low energy use
Less
or
energy.
naturally derived products.
Okay.
What was it?
Biodegradable, less energy use. And the last one was, you had one other attribute, derived from natural products, I think. Okay. So good. And I don't know if some of you saw that Fred is using a 51% post-consumer content material product pen. And, of course, recycled content is one of probably the so-called oldest attribute to think about, and there are many products available now using recycled materials. Let's look for some other attributes. Could I have anyone from, let's see, I don't know if Harper's Ferry was trying to talk and we can hear you. Harper's Ferry Center?
We're here.
Okay, would you like to add to this list of what constitutes a green product or service?
How about downloadable products?
Sorry, go ahead. I think there is a terrible echo which makes it really difficult for me to hear you, so I apologize. We might have to go to a different, how about Vicksburg National Military Park? Would you like to add some attributes to this list? Okay.
I had the same ones that were already listed.
Okay, alrighty, good. So those are good things. Fred, would you like to add some?
Bio-based.
Bio-based, okay. So I'll add, do you have any others, Fred?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Jim, would you like to add? No. Okay, I would like to add things like less reduced packaging, less toxic, uses renewable energy, and the list goes on. There are quite a number of attributes that can determine whether a product is green or not. We have another part of this exercise, which is to look at a more specific list for specific product categories. I think given the number of sites that we're able to hear, we may skip this, but what is helpful for you to consider at your individual sites is to really think about the kinds of products that you buy. So, for example, interior paint. office paper, general purpose cleaners, and all the other things that you indicated to us through first exercise, think about what attribute can you think about that makes that particular product green or less green. And you probably have seen many claims on products that you already buy, and there are claims of eco-friendliness, eco-safe, and other things that you could come up with. We'll be talking about greenwashing a little later on, but there are many attributes that can make a product greener or less greener. So one thing that I'd like to share with you is are some of the attributes associated with those products that you just saw. Now, I just noticed as I was reviewing the slide that I made a terrible mistake on this slide, and I don't know if any of you catch it, but take a moment to look at the attributes that I have come up with for each of those 3 products. So I'm going to just let you take a look at it. And what will become clear is that I made the mistake of putting these attributes for paint that were the same as the hard surface cleaners. And it's really important to know that the attributes that are applicable to hard surface cleaners are not all applicable to interior paint. So, for example, with reduced or no VOCs, actually that's one attribute that crosses both products, but certainly, and perhaps reduced flammability is another one. But reduced packaging really doesn't apply to interior paint. And so I would say we need to have you cross this out on your PowerPoint. If you have a copy of the PowerPoint, go ahead and cross that out, and I will actually ask you as part of your homework assignment to come up with a list of attributes that are applicable to interior paint. So with that, let's go ahead to this part. Another part of the homework actually that I would like for you to do is to take a look at the criteria that have been developed by third-party certifiers in the participant guide, and check out their websites. And check out their websites for all the different products for which criteria have been developed to basically determine a product's greenness. I'd like to talk a little bit about what constitutes, again, a green product. We talked about some of the attributes associated with those 3 products we looked at. And one thing that is very clear is that unlike in the olden days where a single attribute, oftentimes recycled content, could distinguish a product's greenness, that is no longer the case. Rarely does a single attribute contribute to a product being green. Now, in certain cases, it might be a good indicator, for example, energy efficiency associated with lighting. But even with that, there are issues of mercury associated with some of the compact fluorescent lights, which makes it not such a great choice. So single attribute no longer applies. We need to think about multiple attributes associated with the product or service. In addition, we need to think about the upstream as well as downstream impact associated with providing a product. So, for example, we need to think about not just the energy consumed during the use phase, but we need to think about how is that product made? Was the product manufactured using very toxic materials? Or will the product have to be disposed in a way that will become a hazardous waste? So life cycle consideration is an important aspect to think about when you think about green purchases. Another way to take a look at in terms of determining what is green or not is to look at the presence of certain positive attributes like recycled content, energy efficiency, bio-based, and those other characteristics that are listed there, and many of you which also added to. So looking for those positive attributes and presence of those can help us determine whether a product is green or not, while at the same time looking for the absence of certain characteristics such as carcinogens, toxics, whether there is reduced greenhouse gas emissions. An important consideration for us to think about also is that green purchasing is not just about buying more products, even if they're greener. Choosing to not buy a product or service is probably the greenest choice that we can make. And remember, as I indicated or as the mistake that you saw me make with those attributes for interior paint, one size or one set of attributes certainly does not fit all products. You need to use common sense when selecting attributes to determine whether a product is green or not. So with that, we're going to go to our two guest speakers who have joined us. We'll start out with Chris Case, who is with Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore with his presentation. I just need a moment to get to his presentation. Oops. Sorry. And then I will pull up his presentation and we'll get started with Chris's presentation.
Thanks, Ensuk.
Okay, I'm on the first slide. Go ahead, Chris.
Very good. Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore has been engaged in our environmental leadership program for probably the last 20 years or so. And, of course, an integral component of any program such as this is procurement and the actions that people take in acquiring the necessary materials to make these kind of things happen. And we go ahead to slide 2. We ask ourselves, why is being environmentally responsible important? And if you look at slide 3, we have plenty of directives and mandates, and of course the President has encouraged us to do these kind of things. But when you look at slide 4, do we even have to consider those questions and those? Our objective is in our backyard. We're entrusted with some of the most fantastic natural, cultural, and recreation areas in the country, and we want to do the best we can to take care of those. Slide 5. Show off a little bit of my backyard or my office. Everyone, I think, has these kind of slides that they could show for their particular area that they take a lot of pride and care in. And slide 6. And then we go to slide 7. One of the things that helps us, I think, in setting this concept to everyone personally is thinking about everything we do in our daily activities at home and everything we do in our daily activities at work, and just 24 hours a day we have and we make an environmental footprint. And we have to do the things that we need to do. We need to get from one end of the park to the other, and we have to clean, and we have to provide for visitors. And there's so many things that we're required to do. We certainly can't stop doing them because they have an environmental impact. But if we look at how to do those things that are necessary and make the smallest footprint possible. Slide 8. Decide what we do and try to do it in such a way that it has the smallest environmental footprint. And if we can be thinking about our daily activities, how long a shower we take, what vehicle do we drive, do we carpool, all those daily activities that we make micro decisions with hundreds and thousands of micro decisions a day. If we think about the ramifications of those decisions and making a smaller environmental footprint, I think that really helps us in making these greener decisions. Slide 9, we make sustainable decisions, and we have that opportunity, all of us. Slide 10. At Pictured Rocks, we have the opportunity with photovoltaics. I know a number of parks are using solar power and PV power. Contractors and services and supplies are available through the federal procurement system for providing those kind of things. Slide 11. Waste reduction and recycling. I think we all do that. One of the things that we need to try not to do is use recycling as a way of clearing our conscience after we've done maybe some poor decisions, or maybe not as environmentally sound decisions as possible, and we kind of clear our conscience by saying, oh, well, I'll recycle it, and we're okay. Recycling is a last resort. procurement and our decisions should be upfront. Recycling is certainly a last resort. Slide 12. I heard on some of the discussion this morning earlier that people are buying lighting products. Good. There's lots of opportunities for that kind of thing. Remember, as part of your procurement of lighting products, particularly when you're trying to get fluorescent fixtures changed out and such, that part of your procurement process is the proper disposal of the product that you've swapped out. Everyone knows that compact fluorescents have mercury. Everybody knows that fluorescent tubes have mercury. And the proper disposal of that is probably even more important than the energy reduction values that you're gaining from changing those things out. So that's part of your procurement process, is also the disposal process. Slide 13. Product standardization, that's a real important element in minimizing the amount of potential waste you have in your products and things like that. If you can standardize the different colors that you use for your painting activities, the variety of products that you're using in your auto shops and your maintenance operations, it makes it much easier to keep track of your inventory, and it also makes it easier to keep track of your hazardous communication information, which is contained in the MSDS and your hazardous materials inventory. It just really makes your operation a lot more efficient, as well as it gives you guidelines that you can have for the types of products that people are allowed to purchase on their own or through a central purchasing operation. Slide 14. Fleet management. GSA sometimes is a very frustrating organization to work with when you're trying to procure equipment. Doesn't seem like sometimes they're thinking as green as maybe we would like them to, but we still have the opportunity to do some with fleet management, and maybe you purchase a couple of high-mileage vehicles like we do, and our maintenance people will use those when they travel from one side of the park to the other, when they don't necessarily need their big pickup truck and dump truck or something like that. They can use a low or a high-efficiency vehicle in some of those activities. That gets out to slide 15, which is really vehicle operator management. Not only are you doing fleet management of the vehicles themselves, but you're doing operator management and having people make those green decisions or more sustainable decisions in which vehicle they choose to take. That takes a little bit outside the procurement range, but it certainly puts it in the personal ownership range. Slide 16, we need to rethink our routine activities. We're going to go out and buy a lawnmower. Well, what if we buy an electric lawnmower? Will that work for us? Can we have a functioning machine that'll last throughout the day for the type of mowing activities we have if we can recharge it once a day? Or the other thing, better yet, do we even need to mow those areas? That would be an even more sustainable decision, is not even need a lawnmower. But we all realize that we're maintaining Class A areas and trimming things up for shoulder areas and stuff for the visitors. Do we need to do something like that? But maybe we can use an electric mower instead of a gasoline mower that burns fossil fuel and creates a lot more emissions. And better yet, if we can recharge it on the vehicle that's transporting it from one place to another, that would keep it off grid and make it even greener. Slide 17, reduced toxin program. This is an excellent way of really striking with individual employees the benefit of greener products. You have a reduced toxin program. It's safer for the employees. It's also safe for the environment. And chances are products that would be safer for the environment are certainly safer for employees. Slide 18. You may have to partner with whoever to make these things happen. Possibly procurement, the requirements of certain products need to have larger quantities to make them effective to ship, and you might have to partner with somebody to get those products brought in. This particular example is we had to partner with our community, a number of members of our community, just so we could have a recycling operation for paper recycling, and it's worked very successful, but we could not do it on our own. So you need to think about who else is doing the same kind of thing as you're doing and have them help you do it. Slide 19. Green procurement, of course, is a critical and an anchor point for a lot of these things that we do in the park, and most things we do in the park. And we, as people with purchase cards or requisitioning authority or even the ability to fill out a DI-1, we have choices where we can make that work. Always, slide 20, always think of green alternatives. We're a little bit behind the curve. If you go to the Holiday Inn or Hampton Inn restaurant or Holiday hospitality in motels and hotels, and you go into their eating service area and such, they're using totally using sustainable products and such, and so the industry is doing it. We need to make sure that we're at least keeping up with them, and we should be leading. Slide 21. It's an environmental and safety thing. This is something we talked earlier just a moment ago about it being safer for employees and safer for the environment. A good way of telling the scale of that is look at the HMIS or NFPA symbols of the toxicity of the products that we're using. And you can see the one on the right has a 3 and the red for flammability. That's actually gasoline, and that's up there. 4 is the highest to make it the most flammable. If we can find products that, particularly in the blue area, the health area, and the other as well, that lower those numbers, chances are those are certainly greener products. They're certainly products that are going to be better for the environment and definitely better for employees. And employees can look at these labels, and they can see that you're making the numbers go lower. And they really to show the employees that we're trying to make efforts to make things safer for them and the environment. And so it's a real good way, these labels are a real good way to demonstrate the success of greening efforts and such. And then ask the employees, here you're using a product here that has a health rating of 3 or 2. Can you find something that works just as well with a health rating of only 0 or 1? And gets them involved in that. And then they can make those recommendations, and then we can go out and purchase those products and give it a try. Slide number 22. Office products. Folks mentioned, a number of people mentioned office products. I think that's one of the first things we think about. There are all wide variety of opportunities to do stuff in their office products and stuff. The products are out there, easily available. It's just we need to make the conscious effort of deciding that we want to use that green product. Slide 23. Custodial activities. We talked about that being safer for the employees and the environment, but that's certainly a real hard example, a hard on-the-ground example, one that people can put their hands on and actually see that they're making a difference by making these greener choices and using the products. And sometimes it takes a little bit of an adjustment to use those products. Chances are, if it's a little bit easier on people, it might be a little easier on those real tough green spots. You might have to wear grease spots, and you might have to work it a little harder, but it's certainly the way we want to go, and we want to training people to use new products is sometimes a challenge, and you have to get the buy-in of the people that are actually using those products. And it's a real good way if they can recommend the products to use, then they've got the buy-in, and then you just purchase that for them and say, yeah, give it a try. Let's see how it works. Slide 24. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's soy cleaners and solvents. There's citrus cleaners and solvents. There's peroxide. There's a wide variety out there, and it just depends on your particular need as to which ones work. And don't be afraid to try it. I think people get hung up with the procurement guidelines that they have to go to GSA to get these products, and they have to work through the system. And you're right, you do when we get into the program. But if somebody wants to try something that isn't available yet, certainly go ahead and do that. Explain and justify why you're going off maybe the GSA schedule or so. Try the product. If it works, then see if you can work a way of getting that on the program, or finding an alternative product that has the similar attributes that you were looking for in that particular product that is already on the GSA list. But there's so many green products out there that there's the opportunity for trial and error is certainly out there, and find stuff that people like and that work for you. That's the key to making the program successful is people wanting to use it. Slide 25. One thing that we've gone into on a new area that it isn't commonly understood and known about is in our biofluids and biolubricant substitution program. This is primarily in our fleet operation as well as our day-to-day maintenance activities, and these are the elements which I'll go through individually. Biodiesel, I think most people are familiar with biodiesel and understand the attributes and some of the challenges with biodiesel. We're in the northern Michigan area on Lake Superior. We get some pretty harsh winters. We run biodiesel year-round in all of our equipment. We splash blend it, which means we have above-ground storage tanks. It works. We have to be a little cautious on how we handle it. Once you understand its attributes and characteristics, and you learn how to deal with it, it's just fine. It works well. We have had no problems with using biodiesel in any of our equipment. Slide 27. our soy hydraulic fluid in all of our applications that use a hydraulic fluid. We've had real good luck with that. Basically, the operators don't know the difference between using a petroleum product or a vegetable oil product. The performance is equally matched on both of them. Where we do notice a difference is when we get a release or a spill. Hydraulic systems leak. I mean, that's what they do. And no matter what you try to do, you're going to end up with hydraulic leaks one way or another. And with petroleum product, if it leaks on any type of vegetation area, it basically kills it and burns it and kind of poisons it for until you can actually enrich the soil with new topsoil and seeding and stuff like that. With you using vegetable oil hydraulic and you get a leak and it spills onto the vegetation, it acts as like a growth retardant, and it doesn't necessarily kill the vegetation. It's more like it just holds it back. Within a couple of mowing cycles, it's back greened up, and you don't notice a difference. Now, if it's huge quantities, of course, it's going to have a bigger impact. But on a normal leak, when a hose breaks and it sprays around a little bit and such, we've had real good luck with the recovery of the vegetation by using the vegetable oil hydraulics. And slide 28. There's the locomotion type fluids that move vehicles and equipment around on particularly heavier equipment. The transhydraulic fluids, those are you can get those in vegetable oil and much more readily biodegradable. You're greening your fleet by using these things, particularly if you're putting a piece of equipment near an area of water. If you're cleaning out boat ramps or boat launch areas with a backhoe or something like that, you're going to want to try to green up your equipment because it's going to be leaking that fluids and those fluids into the water, and you want to try to make that less environmental footprint of doing that activity. Slide 29. There's fluids made, transhydrostatic fluids for the small equipment, grounds operation equipment and such. Golf courses and cemeteries use these small tractors, and they're in Class A mowing areas, and they don't want to destroy all the good grass that they're trying to manicure and keep up, so they don't want a product that's going to kill the grass if it does leak or you get a spill. Again, the soy and the vegetable oil products are much more readily biodegradable than their petroleum counterparts. Two-cycle engine oil is a real good example. I think folks that are familiar with outboard gasoline engines on boats realize when you first start up your engine, you get this little oil slick that is created out behind the engine, and with that's just unburnt engine oil that's gone through the cylinders and goes out the exhaust, and it's still oil, and it floats to the surface and creates that sheen and that ring around your boat. And if you use a vegetable oil, two-cycle engine oil, you still get the same thing. I mean, the oil still goes through the cylinders, it still comes out the exhaust, and it still gets in the water, but it biodegrades much more rapidly than the petroleum products. So by using that outboard and using a bio engine oil in it, you've lessened your environmental footprint in doing that boat activity and operation. And that two-cycle engine oil works for snowmobiles, boats, your small engine equipment, and all of those pieces of equipment that require that cylinder lubrication that the two-cycle oil provides. Slide 31, bar and chain oil. This is an interesting application of a lubricant. Basically, every ounce or drop of oil you put into that chainsaw reservoir ends up on the ground one way or another. It gets kind of thrown around in the woods. It's made to lubricate that chain, but theoretically you're dumping that whole quart or that whole container of oil on the ground because that's what's happening with that oil after it hits the bar. And if you can use a biodegradable oil on that bar, again, you're lessening your environmental footprint for doing that activity. These products are all available on GSA contract. It's just a matter of selecting and trying them and getting people used to using those as a primary source for the products that they're using. Just make the change. It works. It's doable. Just make it happen. You just got to think a little bit about it. Instead of getting the same old stuff you've always gotten, look at some of these other products that are out there. Number 2, chassis lubricant, the grease that you grease on your grease fittings and stuff for in your vehicles. There's bio products that are available for that application. They're out there. They're easy to purchase, easy to use. They perform equally as well with the added environmental benefits and attributes of it being much more readily biodegradable. Slide 33, soy parts washing fluid. This is something that I think is not only is it good in performance of what it does, this is a real good example of employee health application. Anybody that's ever worked in a cleaning tank, I'm sure remembers the time they get headaches if they're working over the tank long enough. The fumes volatilize and they come up and you smell them, and eventually you actually become overcome and you end up with a headache or something like that, or you don't feel well by using those. In addition to you using that product in the tank, usually everybody else in the room gets some kind of an exposure like that as well. By using a vegetable oil-based parts washing product, the lubricity and the solvency of vegetable oil is even greater than that of petroleum products. So actually the performance of some of these products is better than their petroleum counterpart, just because of the basic attributes of those of lubricity and solvency in the vegetable oil products. So the solvency helps dissolve the greases and such. It's got a flash point of higher than 300 degrees, so it's not even considered flammable or combustible, which means that your fire danger is much more reduced. The VOCs are low enough where it doesn't really volatilize, and you don't get that smell coming out of the tank unless you put your head right down into it, and that smells a little kind of like a kitchen-y smell. And again, the performance of this is equal or better than the petroleum counterparts. It's certainly much better than the aqueous-based ones that you have to heat up and everything else to get them to work. This works on its own, and the solvency of the vegetable oil takes the grease away. I would highly recommend trying it on this kind of an application if you have one of these cleaning tanks. And if you can't get the parts washing fluid, just use biodiesel. That's all it basically is, with a bit of antioxidants in it to keep it from smelling gamey. So you can just use straight biodiesel, and you'll get about the same performance out of it, except it just kind of gets kind of rancid after about 6 months or so, and you kind of want to change it just because it's kind of smelly. Slide 34. Slide 34. There's penetrating lubricants that are similar to Blaster products and WD-40 and those kind of products. Again, the solvency and lubricity penetrates into the threads, and as well as if you hit this with a torch, you don't get the huge flash like you do with a petroleum product. It'll burn, but it doesn't flash as readily as the petroleum products do if you have to heat those things up after you've sprayed them to loosen them up. So I would highly recommend this product. We use it almost exclusively in our shops. Slide 35. We've been experimenting for the last several years with engine oil, crankcase oil in our 4-cycle engines that uses vegetable-based oil. And what it is a mix of about 50% vegetable oil and about 50% of synthetic oil. If you get too much more of a higher concentration of vegetable oil, it starts to gel up and lard up when you're in cold temperatures and stuff. But at 50-50, it stays lubricous, and it works. So we've had real good luck with this. Race car drivers are using these vegetable oils because there's less friction, and they're getting higher RPMs and better performance out of their engines, and winning races and such with these. So there certainly is a benefit to using the vegetable oil products over the petroleum oil products. Slide 36. One of the things you want to do is when you are changing to some of these products, the public expects us to be greener and to be using greener products and demonstrating that we're doing that is a good way of gaining confidence from our constituents and our public. And if you put signs like you see over here on the left of the image, we put those signs on all of our rolling stock, and then we show the different products that we use in that particular vehicle. It certainly encourages other people to use it, but it also shows folks that we are trying to take care of their assets in an environmentally responsible way. We had an exhibit in our visitor center with a 30-gallon oil drum, but the idea was to show folks that we were using these vegetable oil products out in the park, and that we're trying to make the switch to more environmentally friendly products. 37, I guess kind of in closing here, try it, you'll like it. I guess don't be afraid to try these products. Sometimes it's hard. A lot of naysayers. Change is tough for folks. They've been using whatever product they've been using forever. It took them a while to figure out one that worked really well, and they want to stick with it. Getting people off center sometimes is a little bit difficult. find some folks that are willing to try it and use those as your support group. It's kind of hard to try some of these new products on a naysayer, because as soon as something's a little odd, whether it's pertaining to that particular product use or who knows something else, they like to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So be cautious, I guess, in how you make the change, but work at it in each of your individual ways that you can gain some success. Try it. You'll like it. It works. There's no reason not to use it. And on slide number 38, Ensuk, this is my contact information. And if you want to copy that down, our website has a lot of information. It's got this particular PowerPoint presentation on it, so you can use it to show your staff if you'd like. Look and check it over to see if there's some other things that you might like to adopt. Look at the website. There's also resources on there of where we get our product, what products we're using, a lot of greening resources there that you can gain. And then if you have some questions, drop me an email or give me a phone call, and I would be glad to help you promote your program. And no sense of you folks reinventing the wheel. We've already done that. Been there, done that. It's taken some time. We got it going. And it's just a matter of, instead of taking your efforts to develop a program, use your efforts to implement the program. It's already been developed. Just make it happen. So, Ensuk, if we have any questions, I'm done with the formal part of my presentation.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for providing us with a lot of terrific information. And I do encourage folks to take a look at Chris's website. And now we're going to open it up for questions from the participants. Okay. Let's see. Are there any questions from any of the parks who are participating today? It's a quiet group, Chris.
If anybody, if everybody's shy, or if as they get going along, they think about it, again, check the website and please contact me, and I'd be glad to provide whatever assistance I can for folks to promote their programs.
Okay. I do have a question, Chris. You've been doing this for many years, and I'd love to get your perspective on how you get buy-in from the end users, as well as your contracting folks who might, it might be not as easy to get some of these products as, some of the other products, the more conventional products. So what are your strategies?
A couple of things on that question is, one is, of course, me being in facilities, I have a little bit more opportunity to write the DI1s and ask for the particular products that I want when I send that up for procurement. It's real easy if you're doing it yourself, but if you're sending it to have someone else do it, you specify what you're looking for and then stand by your guns and say, this is what I really, really want. And if you can provide the contracting person or the procurement person with the vendor information of where they, you can go for it. So do a little bit of research so that you kind of do their work for them. Makes it a little easier if you have some resistance. The other part of it is it's much, much easier now to get these green products and the products that have the environmental attributes and benefits to them. 10, 20 years ago, they were tough to find. You had to really look around to find something that was green. But now it's such a integral part of industry and marketing that these products are out there, and the government has responded by getting them on the green lists and getting them into GSA and under the green procurement programs. So you may have to do a little bit of work to load your request or your requisitions so that it's a little bit less work for some of those people that may not be willing to do that. They might go the easy route, but anymore, green purchasing it's getting to be the easy route. I think we're certainly to the tipping point where these things are out there, and it's just a matter of looking a little bit beyond maybe what they purchased the last time to something that's equally as you're basically almost like changing the brand name. You've been using the same product all along, and you want to change brands, and you want to change a brand that's now green, and it takes a little bit sometimes to nudge people off center to make a change, but it's much easier to do now than it ever has been in the past.
Great. Well, thank you. That's a lot of great information, and I do encourage folks to contact Chris directly and to check out his website. Now we're going to move on to Mark Rich from Mammoth Cave, who's going to talk about the greening of his purchases from the perspective of EMS. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. And Mark, I have your first slide up. So whenever you're ready, we're ready for you. Start with him? Okay. Okay. Alrighty. So actually...
Hi, thanks a lot, everyone. And again, the first slide here is just a picture of Mammoth Cave, the historic section, if you've never been here. And our second slide there is just a picture of the historic entrance, one of several entrances we use. And actually, my first, I think, 125 slides in this presentation are in color, and the last 100 or so are black and white, but they're very high quality. So, no, I'm kidding. I just want to make sure everyone's awake out there. So, I guess it's a good thing I can't hear your comments. Anyway, talking about putting together an EMS. Most parks, I think, have one these days. We put our first actual EMS together, I think, in 2004. But prior to that, we did have an environmental management plan. And we used to have an environmental management team. Now we have a green team. But it's all kind of going along the same in the same direction. If you go on to slide 3 and Sook, always encourage parks. I do internal audits for the region. I'm one of the internal auditors. Been doing that for about 12 years, do a couple a year. And, I encourage parks, if you're first starting, to not overcomplicate the process. Develop 3 to 5 goals that are fairly simple and achievable. It's okay to even put a goal in there if something you're already doing. But you want to just kind of get comfortable with it, learn the process, educate the staff, and depending on the size of your park, that can be certainly be a challenge. But start slow and just as you feel comfortable, and then you have people in the park that has an interest or even a passion for it, take on more challenges. And slide 4, I've got a listing of our goals from last fiscal year. Now, we have updated that back a few months ago, and we do update it annually. And some of them do carry over. It takes longer than 1 year to achieve, but we try to put things on there and keep them there until we can check them off the list. Our top priority right now still is to become a climate-friendly park, but any of you that's been through that, it is rather time-consuming. Just the completion of the CLIP tool alone. One thing we had to do last year was to gather commuting information for all park employees, concessions employees, folks from Eastern National that work in the park. They had to fill out, how far their daily commute is, whether they carpool any or at all, the type of vehicle they drive. So just that process alone took a long time because with concessions employees and everyone in the summer, we got probably 250 employees working here. So that was difficult, and that was just one step. So we're moving along, and hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, we'll be very close to becoming a climate-friendly park. The other thing we spend a lot of time on in the last few years, in 2009, we developed and implemented an integrated solid waste alternatives plan, commonly known as an ISWAP. And there's a lot of recommendations in that. Some of them was easily done. Others have taken funding and time and education of staff. Sometimes folks didn't want to change the way they've been doing things. Some still don't. Some have slowly got on board. But under that one particular goal, we have something like 15, 20 action items that covers our recycling program, our diversion rates, solid waste. Then we also get into some of the things like Chris was talking about, ways to purchase smarter. and also concentrate on reducing chemical inventories. A lot of things involved under iSwap. We've done other things like buy bright or pure water pitchers and put in the offices to encourage employees to stop using plastic bottles. That's just one example, but whole lot of things there, and we slowly keep working on it. And you can quickly see some of the other things we are working on: energy conservation, alternative fuels, which I'll talk about a little bit more. But the main thing is to have goals that are achievable. But start slow and just kind of work into it, and as you get more comfortable, maybe take on some of the more difficult things. On the next slide, number 5, we do work very closely with our concessioner, which is Forever Resorts. They do business here as Mammoth Cave Hotel. It's a 92-unit hotel. They have 3 restaurants in the hotel. We have 1 restaurant in the cave. They have a camper store. They also have operate a transportation system that shuttles about 200 or so thousand visitors here to and from part of the cave tours. We have another 200,000 or so that walk to the historic entrance near the visitor center. So they are very active, and in the height of the summer they have around 100 employees, and very environmentally conscious. They have a good program. They're the first green certified hotel and restaurant in the state of Kentucky, and we work very closely with them and share a lot of activities. In slide 6, you'll see a picture here of a cardboard compactor. This is actually maintained by the concessioner, and the park and the concessioner use it, and they have 3 of those units like that. One they have out at their operations area that everyone puts their cardboard in. They have another one at the hotel they use for trash, and they have a 3rd one that sits empty with their waste contractor. And when either one of those fill up, they just make a phone call, and they bring in the empty one and swap it out. But again, the park and the concessioner use this, and the concessioner funds it, maintains it. If it breaks down, they take care of it. Now on slide 7, the plastics baler. It sits just adjacent to the cardboard compactor, and this is park-owned, operated. We do the same thing. We fully operate it, maintain it. If it breaks down, we fix it. But the concessioner uses it as well. And you might notice off to the left there's some stacks of plastic. Those are plastic bales. And if you go to slide 8, one of my favorite slides, I think, just because that toilet seat in there kind of gives you a little idea of the things you can recycle. Here in the area, we have a recycler that takes plastics 1 through 7. That even includes what's commonly called like styrofoam, which is actually a trademark of DuPont, but things like the polypropylene and all plastics, they will take those. And in days before we did not have a baler, our bins would fill up, and somebody had to break away, get a forklift, load the bins onto a truck, drive it to the recycler, which now is only about 15 miles. Used to be about 30 miles to the closest one. And what happened many times, we just couldn't do it, so a lot of things that would have been recycled end up going into the waste stream. Now with this baler, we just bale it up, set it off to the side there, and maybe a couple times a year they'll come over and load those bales onto a trailer on a slow day, haul it to the recycler. They unload it for us there, and it's proved to be very effective and efficient for us. Going to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about some of the things we do with the green team, and I always tell folks to try to make these activities fun. And look for the people on your staff that has a real passion for it. Some folks are just, very, very passionate when it comes to certain environmental items, especially recycling in this area is something that traditionally has not been done a lot out in the communities. Some of the bigger towns, Bowling Green, Glasgow, have that, but your smaller communities simply just don't have the means to do it. So in the park here, we have been very active for a number of years, but we partner with various folks, and recently been trying to bring in and get school groups involved. The last couple of years, we host what we call a recycling day. Next slide. Used one of the students from the local area, put together just some she's a pretty good artist, and just liked to draw some little signs. So I wanted to show that. And on slide 11, that same day, there you see a group of school kids, and the ladies behind the table are actually from our recycling operator, GNR Reclamation, and from the Dark Corporation, who helps us with recycling the styrofoam type products. You see the Frisbees on the tables. Those are made from recycled plastic. And if you go on to slide 12, just some stats there that tells you a little idea. I didn't have a clue how much plastic it took to make anything, but if you look down there, the last one, 1,200 plastic bottles, can make a 200-pound railroad tie. 96-gallon milk jug can make a 2x4 6-foot long. So get you a little idea of what they do with some of this thing, some of these products after they are recycled. Slide 13, that is one of our power providers in the area, Warren Rural Electric. They offer and promote the Green Power Switch, and you can sign up, or at least last year it was 150 for a 150-watt block of green power. You pay an extra $4 premium. And I was telling the folks yesterday that I don't forget that, because I signed up for that, and my wife reminds me every month when the bill comes in. She's one of those folks that's not quite as passionate about some of these activities, especially when it's impacting her pocketbook. But she goes along with the program and doesn't mention as much anymore. So I guess she's another example of folks getting on board. 14 slide 14 is a group we are demonstrating here. Joel Gillespie, one of our interpreters, and his son, they do a lot of organic type activities, gardening and such, and they also have an earthworm composting farm that his son operates, and they're just doing a demonstration there for one of the groups of school children that came up for our recycling day. Slide 15 shows just a few of the alternative fuel vehicles we have in the park. Mammoth Cave was the first unit in in fact, all of the Department of Interior to become 100% alternative, or have 100% alternative fuel vehicles back in 1999. We have since partnered with the Kentucky corn producers. We have our own ethanol, E85, E10 station here, biodiesel, propane, all right here in the park, and us and the concessionaire partnered to build that. We operate it jointly. The bus is used for transportation to and from the cave tours, runs on propane. The van on the right is an ethanol fuel vehicle, but it will run normal gasoline if you're out on a trip and can't obtain the ethanol. The little car on the left is one of our electric gym cars. And just here in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a rollout and a celebration with the Department of Energy and the Clean Fuels, Clean Cities programs. They give us a grant last year, $505,000, and we purchased 4 new propane buses to replace 4 of the oldest in the fleet. And we also are getting 2 brand new Ford pickup trucks for our Ranger division, and we're adding another one of the gym cars to our fleet. Up next on slide 16.
Welcome to Unified
Hello.
Mark, go ahead. Sorry for that.
He's still there. Good deal. Slide 16 is just some of the school groups, again, helping us on our recycling activities. Slide 17, we took some of them down to the Dark Corporation there, and they have a 24-hour recycling operation where folks in the community can bring in their plastics and their styrofoam-type products and recycle. Now, slide 18 is something we started last year. This was from last September, and we're going to do it maybe a couple of times this year. We have a lot of folks in the area like to garden, and well, of course they like to brag about it. And we got thinking about it. That'd be something fun to do, is let everybody bring in, what they might have grown in their home garden. And as we got talking about it, we decided to come up with this idea to call it an organic or sustainable picnic. And what we did, we promoted it, and folks brought in their food from home. We did buy some grass-fed beef and made some sloppy joes, and we had everybody to bring their own plates, their own glasses, and we just had like a big jug of ice water and iced tea, and everyone eat. We had fed over 50 people. At the end of the day, there was zero trash there. We didn't even have a trash can, and folks took their plates back to their offices or home and washed them there. And it's something we're going to try to keep growing here. And everybody had a real good time. On the next slide, 19, there, just a few of the items that was brought in. Again, we did this in September, so everybody's gardens were mature and a lot of things to offer. Slide 20 is just a picture I sent out to park staff, and that's actually our pantry at home. My wife's a big gardener and loves to can, and so I took a picture of after she had it all filled up from the summer, and I kind of sent it out, and we got a lot of ribbing going back and forth, who had the hottest peppers or who had the best pickles, and it was just a lot of fun. But when I got looking around to clean up, it just amazed me. There wasn't nothing to clean up because everybody went along with the program, and it was just a very fun day. And again, on that next slide, just a little bit more of the food and the canned goods. Slide 22, just briefly talk about the future and education. We have a large environmental education staff here at the park, and they do go out to the local schools in the area, and also will take a certain number of schools or classes per day. They have to set it up, and if they make proper arrangements and go through the program, they can go in the cave free of charge. But they also have a nature walk involved in a classroom portion, and they'll come here, arrive 9 o'clock in the morning, spend the entire day. And we have a couple of rangers with them, depending on the size of the group, and truly do some environmental education. In the past, everybody would come for a free cave tour, and it seemed like in May we'd have thousands of kids every day, and they just turn them loose in the cave. So now you have to go through this program, or you have to buy the tickets like everyone else. Slide 23, just as we're wrapping up here. Just another cave shot, and again, I think it's very important to be successful, especially with things that folks are not as accustomed to. Make it interesting, make it fun. We hold our meetings in different places in the park. Sometimes go in the local communities and have lunch. Try to do something, because we're a cave park, but we got 50-something thousand acres above ground that a lot of people never get to see. So we may meet on the north side of the park in the backcountry, or do various things to try to spur interest for employees to be involved, and from there we can hopefully educate the park staff. And just a couple of ending slides there. It's a picture of one of our wild cave tours. If you ever have the opportunity, it's about a 6-hour tour, crawling and going over rocks and rubble off the beaten path. And if you're not claustrophobic, folks really tend to enjoy that. And again, end up there, the last slide, just thank you. And if you have any questions, I'd certainly be willing to try and answer them.
Great. Thank you so much, Mark. That was a great overview of your program, and I'd like to open it up for questions from the folks who are participating today. And remember, there are multiple ways for you to communicate with us. You can certainly use the push-to-talk mic, which is most preferred. You can email us, tweet with us, or you can even send us a fax of any questions or comments. So are there questions?
Question from Zion.
Okay, Zion, go ahead.
Yes, Mark, with your plastics baler, do you find that while you're waiting for the bales to be hauled off, that you have problems with any loose debris coming off and creating a bigger cleanup problem?
If you don't stay on top of it, those areas will have a tendency to do that, but we just try to keep it maintained. Both of those, they set in the area of the park that there's some buildings, part of them are park managed, some of them are concessions managed, and we just keep an eye on it. They sit right there by a blacktop parking lot, and we keep it mowed in the area, so it does take a little effort, but if we'll stay on top of it, it hasn't presented any major problems, but it is certainly something that you have to keep an eye on.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Other questions?
I think they all fainted when they thought I was going to have 300 slides.
I think you could have 300 slides, Mark, and still keep us all interested. So, alrighty. So I think that any last call on questions? Okay. Well, you have the contact information for Mark there. And again, I would really encourage folks to be in touch with both Mark and Chris with any questions or, if you want to get their ideas on something that you'd like to get started. I think they'd be great resources. Thank you, Mark, very much for joining us today. I appreciate it greatly.
Certainly welcome.
All righty. So now we're going to move on to, are we okay on time? And move on to Fred Sterniolo, who's going to be talking about all the reasons why we should be buying green. So with that, Fred, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sunsuk. Okay, why buy green? There's a laundry list. And it's more of a reference list. I'm going to talk about each of those, but to echo something that Chris Case said, it's who we are and it's what we should be doing. So it's really consistent with our mission. And the other thing I think that's very important also is that it's going to save money and resources and really reap a general environmental benefit. First, we need to buy green because it's the law. There's a series of executive orders and revisions to the federal acquisition regulations that require us to do that. Environmental purchasing dates back to the mid-1970s when the buy recycled requirement was articulated in RCRA for five items at that time. RCRA is the Resource Conservation Recovery Act. The federal solid and hazardous waste legislation, essentially. Since those early days, additional legislation has been enacted to require purchase of green products and services by the federal government. These include the Pollution Prevention Act of 1990 and various energy and farm bills. There's a long list of executive orders that are green purchasing requirements, most specifically Executive Order 13423 and 13514 are the two ones that we'll look at now. The first is Executive Order 13423, signed into law January 2007, and this executive order made an attempt to consolidate all the green purchasing requirements under one big umbrella and include energy efficiency, environmentally preferable products, bio-based, water efficient, and recycled content products. President Obama came along and issued Executive Order 13514, Federal Leadership in Environmental, Energy, and Economic Performance. And this really was very important because it sets sustainability goals for federal agencies. And we've referred to some of them before with respect to greenhouse gas emissions, which is a really big goal that we're all trying to meet. And this Executive Order 13514 built upon Executive Order 13423. So they both still apply. It was pretty much the first time that one order didn't replace another. It just was a supplement to another. Executive Order 13514 sets some federal requirements in the following areas. And again, as I mentioned, greenhouse gas reduction targets. You had to increase your energy efficiency. You had to reduce your consumption of fuel in your fleets. It has water conservation goals, waste reduction goals, 50% recycling for solid waste, and construction and demolition waste. And most importantly, what the order wanted us to do is to leverage our buying power of the federal government. As Unsuk mentioned, we're the largest procurer of goods and services, and we wanted to stimulate the marketplace to provide greater choice of environmentally preferable products. Very specific to green purchasing, Executive Order 13514 calls for agencies to ensure that 95% of all new contracts and modifications to contracts for products and services are green. And what does that mean? Essentially, these contracts need to contain green elements, and they need to have such things as energy and water efficient products, bio-based products, non-ozone depleting substance purchases, ODSs, such as refrigerants contained within, products containing recycled content, and just lower toxicity or toxin-free products. And requirements for green purchasing are codified within the Federal Acquisition Regulation, otherwise known as the FAR. And Part 23 is the main place to go if you want to look at the FAR. And basically what it asks us to do is acquire goods and services that promote efficiency in the areas of energy and water and advanced renewable energy such as solar and wind, and to stimulate, once again, the marketplace for the new technologies that are environmentally preferable. And it's very important to note that this applies to all procurement, including those below the simplified acquisition threshold. So once again, purchase cards comes into play in that realm. And as I mentioned earlier, buying green is certainly consistent with the NPS mission to preserve and protect, just as the Organic Act articulates. And a little bit about WASO. Over the years, we've provided some subsidies to help offset the extra costs of buying green. And it's interesting to note that with some of these products, the subsidies are no longer needed because the products have pretty much become price neutral. A good example is paper. It used to cost a lot more to get a 30% content recycled content paper, and now it costs more for the virgin paper than the 30%. And there's been also some great projects that have gone on, been instituted at the regional level. Right now there's several regions in the National Park Service that are working on their own green product databases, most notably the Midwest region and the Southeast region. And the Southeast Regional Office has modified theirs to be even more user-friendly, and they're working on that right now. And of course, there's many examples that we just learned about, especially from two parks of various projects that we see that are excellent examples. And not to forget also commercial services. Mark Rich talked about the great partnerships that they had with their concessionaire there, and they have significant components of greening built into their programs. And of course, most recently in August of 2011, you may have heard about Director John Jarvis rallied the NPS employees to talk about the next century in a shared vision, and they called it the call to action, which is a vision towards 2016 and beyond. And it talks about stewardship and engagement. And this document articulates the NPS commitment as a leader in environmental and natural resource stewardship. And one specific goal within the call to action talks about greening the service. At the same time, that green purchasing is an important tool that supports existing priorities and programs, such as the Green Parks Plan, which I heard actually was issued today. I just got an email about it, didn't get a chance to read the whole thing. There's going to be a public plan issued on Earth Day on April 22nd. Green purchasing also makes a great place to as a focus area for which to develop goals, such as Mark Rich was talking about with your environmental management system. You can set goals for energy, waste management, and others, because every purchase has an impact, as has been demonstrated already. You could set metrics, for example, that's very achievable, and we're going to hear about some of them soon, where 100% of janitorial supplies will be non-toxic by 2012. Buying green products and services also supports the service-wide climate-friendly parks program, which is real big on greenhouse gas emissions and lessening them or actually reducing them. And of course, there's many other benefits to buying green. By buying green, you can reduce your liability, and there we have an example of a big pile of electronic waste, otherwise known as e-waste, which is getting to be a real big problem. And electronic waste contains hazardous substances such as lead, mercury, chromium, cadmium, beryllium, and the circuit boards and other components like that. And while proper management of these is covered by the Resource Conservation Recovery Act and the Superfund laws, there's still a liability that exists from the disposal of these items if it's not done consistent with environmental guidelines. So the lesson here, I think, is that the upfront consideration in the purchase phase can really reduce our liability and any exposure that we might have. So if a product has a lower amount of toxins to begin with, the liability related to its disposal is thereby reduced. And green product purchases can help save you money. Some examples, LED light signs. They can last up to 25 years. They're done with light-emitting diodes, otherwise known as LEDs, and the service life on them is greatly enhanced. No more change in bulbs every 6 months. Other examples in the photo there are slide, I should say, are plastic lumber, which is extremely durable and doesn't require painting on an annual basis. And they illustrate examples of products that are more durable and they require less people power to maintain. I know they've used a lot of plastic lumber at various parks for boardwalks, and one specific example is at Yellowstone, and it doesn't break down to the acidic waters associated with some of the different features there at the hot springs and things like that. So these all translate into cost savings. And green cleaning products, as Chris mentioned, really are very important because you get a double bang for the buck. Reduced health impacts for the employees as well as occupants, and also it's just less toxic to dispose of any of the unused products at the end. Bio-based solvents are also another great area that you can make some great strides with. Less hazardous chemicals, reduced costs for waste disposal. And it all sounds great, and it's a win-win scenario. So a key question for anyone who's contemplating a switch to products is, do they work? And we hear many stories about how these things just don't perform. And these stories kind of get stuck in people's minds, and they say, hey, you know, I know in our office, for example, we used a recycled toner cartridge, and it ruined a printer drum, and that was about 15 years ago, and it's like pulling teeth to get recycled toner cartridges. But they really are more or less myths that existed about 10 or 15 years ago, and green products have evolved over time and continue to evolve, so it's time to dispel the myths and give these things a try. There are many green products that do perform, and you've heard from Chris and Mark about their experiences, and there are many other stories out there. And lastly, why should we buy green? We can join other parks. These are all parks that we've learned about through our Green Procurement webinar series that have excellent examples of programs that have switched to green elements and have had major successes. And these folks, as I mentioned, have participated in a one-hour webinar series on green procurement, and they've talked about excellent examples of switching behaviors and switching products. And they've had some challenges, but they've all met them head on and dealt with them, and they've had successes. So we can reap the benefits of their experience and add our own twist to green purchasing to make it work at your park. Some of the opportunities, once again, cleaning products, bio-based lubricants and fuels, hydraulic oils, small equipment fuels, recycled content items, especially in the area of building products, and in the areas of solvents. It can be water-based with low or no VOCs. Lead-free ammunition is a really big program that we have. It's part of the NPS Get the Lead Out program, which, for example, not only bans lead sinkers, but also comes on to the law enforcement end of things, and we've been real successful with switching over to green or frangible ammunition that does not contain lead. And, of course, office products are a very big area where you can purchase a lot of recycled content, plastic items that contain 30 to 40% recycled content. So with that said, we're going to open it up for questions. Any questions now? Okay. We are going to take a 5-minute break right now, and during the break we're going to go to a series of PowerPoint slides that illustrate examples of green procurement at the various parks. Some of them that were on the list there that you saw in a couple slides back. We'll be right back now.
Some very specific requirements for buying green. So with that, we'll quickly take a look at the FAR again. As Fred mentioned, the main provision is in Part 23, and there's a list there of the mandatory purchase programs, including CPG, or the recycled content, energy-efficient products, that includes both Energy Star and FEMP designated products, and bio-based. And FAR Part 13.201 reminds us that environmental procurement requirements apply to at or below the micro-purchase threshold. And so that, again, means all with the purchase card must comply with the requirements of buying green. So we're going to take a more detailed look at this list of the requirements that exist either by statute or by executive order. So let's begin with the comprehensive procurement guidelines. This is, of course, as you all know, the oldest sort of buy green program that has been in place. So for more than 30 years, EPA issued the first set of procurement guidelines for recycled content products. EPA's comprehensive procurement guidelines list now contains over 60 products. So all major procuring agencies are required to establish affirmative procurement programs, and purchase these items that are designated and indicated here. I'm going to take a quick look at an example to illustrate a point. So we're looking at recycled office paper. That's a designated item. And CPG says our minimum need is for 30% post-consumer content. Now this is good, but remember, it's the minimum. You can go beyond 30%. You can buy 100% post-consumer, which has been processed without chlorine and perhaps has recyclable reamer wrappers and other attributes. So just remember, the CPG requirement sets a minimum, and it's certainly not something that you need to stop at. So if you want to go beyond what is required by CPG, that is, I think, a great thing to do. Here are some lists of the CPG items that have been designated, some examples of products that you should be buying, from tissue products and all kinds of office products. Here are some more examples, including vehicular products like engine coolant to landscaping products like garden hoses. A full list of the CPG designated items can be found on the CPG website. That's listed below there. Let's move on to energy efficient products. Purchase of Energy Star and FEMP designated products are required under the Energy Policy Act of 2005 and is codified within the FAR Section 23 again. The Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007 and the executive order, additional executive orders further support this requirement. Energy efficient products typically purchased with a purchase card include things like desktop computers, laptops, printers, and small appliances. The list here shows all the other categories that are applicable for government agencies. Looking at FEMP designated products. Now, FEMP products are those products that are in the upper 25% of energy efficiency in their class. Examples of FEMP products include the ones that are listed on the right-hand side there. They range from office equipment to food service equipment and commercial equipment. And again, a full list of the Energy Star and FEMP products are listed on the FEMP website, which you can find the URL for it in the participant guide. There's also a requirement to purchase what's known as EPEAT products, and EPEAT stands for Electronic Products Environmental Assessment Tool. And EPEAT is a system that helps buyers evaluate and compare and select electronic products based on their environmental attributes from a life cycle perspective. And we talked a little bit about the importance about thinking things more comprehensively instead of just a single attribute. Well, this is a program and a tool that does that, and they have a list of products, and the 5 that are applicable are desktops, laptops, monitors, thin clients, and workstations. Now, DOI has a department-wide contract that specifies for EPEAT. So if you're buying from this contract, then you are already meeting the EPEAT requirement, and that's a good thing. If you aren't, you need to take a look at buying those products from the mandatory contract that exists for those products. Now, moving on, let's look at the USDA's program. This is the newest Buy Green program that is through the federal government, and bio-preferred or bio-based program comes out of the 2002 Farm Bill, which then got strengthened with additional farm bills of 2007. So it requires federal agencies to establish, similar to the CPG program, an affirmative procurement program for preferred purchasing of bio-based products. USDA has been very busy. They're very active. They're very strong on trying to engage both the federal agencies to buy products and also to work with the suppliers, the vendors, to ensure that those products are made available. They've designated in very short time 77 product categories, and the product categories are can be divided among sort of 7 functional areas. They cover things like construction, food service, groundskeeping. They have very many products under the industrial lubricants and fluids, and I think we heard from Chris Case the many great products that are available and that have been performing well at his park. There are also a number of janitorial, personal, and miscellaneous items. For miscellaneous, it's things like bedding and thermal containers and other things like that. So again, USDA has done a lot of very proactive, things to get the market moving in the right direction, both in terms of availability of these products and also working with federal agencies to make sure that those products are purchased. I'm going to take a look at actually an example of the type of products that are addressed, and it's a little difficult to see, so we're going to go to Elmo with Fred there. Switch the screen to. So here's an example of the kinds of requirements that have been set. There is for construction materials. You see like carpet, composite panels, and on the, a little lower. Thank you, Fred. So we can see that there are content levels set for those products. So minimum bio-based content for, let's say, composite panels, acoustical composite panels is 37%. So that's the minimum. And similar to CPG, if you find a product with higher bio-based content, that is something that's great. And as long as it performs and is price competitive, there is no need to stick just to that minimum bio-based content. So great. Thank you, Fred. And so we'll go back to looking at some additional requirements to buy green. We heard some great examples of alternative fuel vehicles and fuels that are being used at the 2 parks that we heard from. And so there is definitely a requirement to buy these. And I know that purchase card holders aren't going out there and buying vehicles, but you are buying fuels. So there is a requirement to buy those alternative fuels. And it's supported by and required by the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. There is also a requirement to buy energy-efficient products. This is more of a voluntary program, but it's very heavily emphasized in Executive Order 13514. And you might say, why water efficiency? Why do we need to think about it? There's plenty of water. Well, moving, treating, pumping, heating, and processing water uses a lot of energy. So every gallon of water has an energy footprint associated with it, and it's quite significant. So we want to try to encourage federal agencies to buy water-efficient products. Well, there's a program within EPA. It's called WaterSense, and they've developed a label for the items that are listed there, including bathroom sink faucets, urinals, toilets, shower heads, and also landscape irrigation controllers. Now, the label that EPA has created is third-party certified and tested, and it addresses both efficiency and performance. Fred talked about how many green products are performing well or better, and we heard that from Chris and Mark as well. These WaterSense label items also need to perform at least 20% higher. So they need to reduce water reduction by at least 20%. And they are a great retrofit for what you may already have. More requirements. There is also a program called Environmentally Preferable Products Program within EPA, and they try to advance the whole concept of multiple attribute life cycle based determination to buying green. And they have a number of product categories that they've sort of addressed their focus on. There are a lot of materials related to janitorial products and services, building construction and renovation products, and I think people who are involved in the building sector really can attest to the fact that the number of greener sort of alternatives that are available in this area has really skyrocketed, and I think many are performing as well or better. There are also a lot of resources through the EPP program for landscaping products and services, cafeteria ware, mostly to do with the bio-based content, as well as services of meeting and conferences. And we heard Mark talk about how his concession has received the certification for Green Hotel in his state. A few more requirements. Fred talked about how there is a requirement to buy non-ozone depleting substances, and that is sort of managed through EPA's SNAP, or Significant Alternatives Policy Program. Significant New Alternatives Policy Program, and they cover a variety of products. Again, not all of these are purchased by purchase cards, but something that you need to be aware of as well. Well, that's a lot of lists to go through. If you want a simpler way to get all the lists together, then you need to take a look at the green products compilation. This is quite a comprehensive list of all the products for which different federal agencies have issued designations or have set guidance for. And it's available through the fedcenter.gov website that is indicated there on the screen. It's also included in your participant guide as well. One thing to note is that the list gets updated quite frequently. Right now, version 10 is available, but as Energy Star and USDA and other programs revise their lists, this list gets revised as well. So you do need to make sure that you have the most current list as you check out what is on that. So, okay, we are going to now look at greenwashing. I think the good news is that green consumerism has gone really mainstream, and I think we heard from both Chris and Mark about how they have seen the marketplace change in their experience. And I think it's even become hip, as you can see here from some of the covers of the magazines. The bad news is that I think all this information can be quite daunting. And there is, in fact, way too much information, and it makes it difficult sometimes to make a decision about what is green or not. So how should we sort through everything? Well, let's begin by looking at the different ways that green can be determined. It can be based on government standards or guides, which I've just talked about, a number of them. It can be based on green or vendor claims about the products or practices that they may have. Green can be based on third-party organizations, and some organizations have developed their own unique standards, which has sort of the pros and cons associated with that, but some have gone that way. So looking at the government standards or guides, I've talked about all of these products, except for actually there's one in the middle, Design for the Environment. That's another EPA program that looks at chemicals, and they have their own labeling program that they have come up with. But basically, these are programs that have been designed by various federal agencies with input from the public, input from vendors, and whatnot. So that is one way you can determine whether a product is green or not. So another way of determining what is green product is based on claims of green that are made by vendors. There are, of course, many green claims that are out there now. Most of what you see here are fictitious, but I'm sure you could add a few that you've seen at the stores where you buy products. Here are some real examples. And again, all of these imply that vendors have caught on to the marketability of being green. Another way that products have been deemed green is by certification that is given or done by third-party programs. And when I started in this field some 20 years ago, we had two third-party certifiers, Green Seal and Scientific Certification programs. And both of those programs exist still, but many more have been added, as you see by some of the examples of the labels that I've included here. But what you need to be aware is you need to be aware of greenwashing, both for the claims that are made by vendors as well as third-party certifiers. And greenwashing is defined as the act of misleading consumers, the purchasers, regarding the environmental practices of a company or the environmental benefits of a product or service. So you need to be aware of broad or vague claims like environmentally safe, environmentally friendly, or non-toxic that has no other supporting documentation. And it might not even be relevant depending on the product and the claim that is being made. Okay. You also need to be aware of third-party standards. Not all third parties are created equal, and so you need to look for certain programs that increase their sort of credibility and the relevance. So you need to look for programs that have some transparency, that have meaningful standards, that are consistent, and that allow for public comment. So how do we avoid greenwashing? Because it's definitely out there. As the marketability of green products have increased, so have the claims that are just downright false or misleading. One way to avoid greenwashing is to become familiar with examples of what is a bad claim versus a good claim. And you can do that by visiting this website, sinsofgreenwashing.org. They have a lot of really good information and great examples done in a really fun, informative way. Another way you can avoid greenwashing is to become familiar with the Federal Trade Commission's green guides. The green guides were developed back in the middle 1990s to address multitudes of claims that they were starting to see then that were being made by vendors. So this is really a guide meant for the vendors of what to do and what not to do, but it's helpful if you are familiar with the types of things that they address. So the guides currently address things like eco-friendly, eco-safe, as well as the certification programs and terms related to recyclability, degradability, compostability, ozone-safe, ozone-friendly, and claims that are often made about non-toxicity or low toxic nature of a product. The FTC guides are currently being revised. They're going to keep all the ones pretty much that they have now, but they're going to add some new ones because, again, the markets have changed and new claims are very much present. So claims made by vendors related to renewable materials, made with renewable energy, carbon offsets are all going to be addressed in the proposed or in the revised guides that the Federal Trade Commission will set. And lastly, another way to really avoid greenwashing is to rely on rating systems that have cropped up. These are three examples. Consumers Union is the publisher of Consumer Reports, which I think many of us are familiar with. And they have a great website called Greener Choices, and they have rated claims and labeling organizations. So that's one resource, and I'll walk through some of the websites with you in a couple minutes. Ecolabel Index is another one, and NRDC has come up with a tool called Label Lookup. So these are three sources of ratings for claims and third-party programs. So let's take a quick look at by focusing on Greener Choices. So this is the website that you can go to, and it's you can just put Greener Choices, and then if you Google that, it'll bring you pretty much right to this website. On Greener Choices, you can use the search tools to get expert evaluation of labels on food, wood, personal care products, and household cleaners. So for the National Park Service, the household cleaners is probably the most relevant one. And are we able to see that okay? Okay, so yeah, I think that's fine. So you can search by product, category, or certifier and easily compare labels using the report cards. So actually, Fred, we'll go on to the report card in just a couple minutes. Okay. So here are some search options. You can search by label, product category, or certifying organization. Within search by label, you have the option of searching by logo, or you can view an index of labels, which I've done. And you can see here's the result of the search index of logos. And if I wanted to take a closer look at, let's say, the SCS certified logo there, which I've sort of highlighted or circled, you get a report card. And it's really difficult to see, and maybe, so we might switch over to the Elmo, Lincoln. So actually, if we could see the beginning, okay, so there's an example of the report card. So it's for the SCS claim of certified biodegradable. So the report card has heading at the top which says, how meaningful is this label? And they rate it. For this particular instance, they think it's actually highly meaningful. And then there's a little footnote. Well, is the label verified? Is the meaning of the label consistent? And it has other categories that they've rated the particular claim. And so I think it's a really great resource. Was the label developed with broad public input, public and industry input? In this case, it wasn't, and then it explains in the footnote how it was developed. And when you visit the website, you'll see lots of other really great information. And I know it's time-consuming to do this research, and but if you could dedicate some time for maybe certain classes of products that you're interested, if you want to just even spend 5-10 minutes, I think it will really raise your awareness level about greenwashing and ways to avoid it. And so, looking at, let's see, moving on to some of the other, there we go, thank you, other information that's available. There's an index of claims also found on Greener Choices, and here's a list of some of the claims that might be found. It's hard to see, but I wanted to check out what they would say about, let's see, eco-choice or eco-safe. And here's the report card. And again, it's difficult to see, but again, they provide information about how meaningful this claim is. In this case, they say it's not meaningful, and other information. Moving quickly on to another rating program that's available. This is Eco-Label Index, that's developed by an organization called Big Room Incorporated. And in this case, this requires a subscription to get more detailed information. However, for free, you can still get a lot of good information about the different kinds of sort of product labels that exist in the marketplace. So, for example, you can just look for eco-labels in the U.S., and it lists all 190 of them that are out there, and that is a dizzying number. But you can, look at the sort of the alphabetical listing and go right to the one that you're interested in finding out more about. So, for example, in this case, I wanted to take a look at what this certified green dealer was, and so it's actually a program that certifies U.S. green lumber and building materials. So I thought, okay, well, that looks interesting and would be relevant. So I clicked on that, and it brings you to some very good information for free about the various aspects of this program. So that's Eco-Label Index. And the last tool to take a quick look at is NRDC's Label Lookup Tool. And this is something, again, is available to any purchaser or anybody who is interested. NRDC researched roughly 200 different claims that can be found on product labels, and they gathered information about how good those claims were. I don't know if you can see it, but there are sort of little leaf symbols here, and all the green leaves indicate that that is a good rating for the claim that you're interested in. If it's sort of empty, like the ones here, that indicates that it's not such a great label. So, for example, I wanted to see what the result would be for the term environmentally friendly. Well, it comes back and it says, well, it's not such a great term. It's not very specific, and it doesn't tell you much about why that product is environmentally friendly. So with that, we're going to switch over to talking about where you can find green products. And we're going to go actually right to Lorena Nelson, who is joining us here today from Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore to talk about navigating GSA Advantage to find green products. And so it'll take me a moment to switch over to her presentation. And let's see. We'll go to Lorena's, and here it is. And we have Lorena on the call with us.
Hi, thank you, and
Thank you, and thank you for your patience. We're running a little bit behind. I appreciate you holding on, and we're ready for you whenever you are ready to go.
Okay, I'm ready. We're going to talk today and show you a little bit about how to navigate through GSA Advantage. What is GSA Advantage? GSA Advantage is the government's premier online shopping system. It gives you instant access to millions of high-quality products, services, and solutions, and it also has an environmental program. Why should we use GSA Advantage? I know we all know that we all have different federal agencies must give preference to products that are designated by following programs. I heard on Slip just talk a little bit about most of these. And what's nice about GSA Advantage is they have a designated environmental program where you can search all these different programs all at one time. So if you're looking for one product and you want to see what's available in like 3 different programs, you can click these 3 different programs. I'll show you in a minute how to do that and check everything all at one time. So we are looking at the following programs that we must give preference to are the EPA's Comprehensive Procurement Guidelines, the CPGs, the Energy Star, the Electronic Peats Environmental Assessment Tool, or EPEAT, the Federal Energy Management Program, or FEMP, BioPreferred, and Water Sense. The exceptions to this are if the product is not reasonably available, you got a huge long wait time, it's got to come from like another country or something, you don't have to purchase it. If the product fails to meet the performance standards in which you're going to use it, leaves a cloudy residue or a sticky residue, then you don't have to use it. Or like with paper, it shreds really easy or bleeds through. Those are type of issues that are performance-based that if a recycled contact product has this, then you don't have to purchase it. Or if the product is available at an unreasonable price. Within our park here, it's a 10% increase. So if you're looking at buying copier paper and one company, which is not a part of the programs, if it's 10% more than one that is not, then you don't have to purchase the one from inside the program. Some things that you should do before you decide to purchase. You need to check your internal department and bureau policies and list all the applicable product content standards. I also heard on talk about fedcenter.gov and the compilation spreadsheet that's available there. Wonderful tool for finding out exactly what do you need to make this a green purchase. And use online tools to identify compliant products. That's just searching through the different programs and see what makes their products comply with the programs. And then always buy and document. So first we're going to log on to the GSA Advantage website. That's located here at www.gsaadvantage.gov. And when you click on and you log in, this is what your welcome page should look like. And you can see they've got things listed in here by products or by services. And there's a couple different ways you can search. You can automatically do a search at the top there on the toolbar and enter an item and go to where it says products and use your drop-down tool and search it through that way. Or if you can look down right there in the middle of the page, it says special programs. And there's one with a green leaf there, and that is the designated environmental program. So when you go ahead and click on that, we're going to enter the environmental program. And when you do that, you get this page here where it tells you it's all about green and GSA. It gives you a little bit of background information on their green program. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you've got some green boxes there that gives you a little bit more information on some other green types of programs, the environmental policy, their environmental services, their environmental products, how to recycle and property disposal. And then when you go down, you can see another place where it says product search, where you can put in a product and it says all categories. Now, when you're on this page and you're in this section, the categories that it's going to search are what the little boxes are there below. And those are all the programs that NSUC was just talking about as well. The BioPreferred, the Energy Star Compliance, CPGs, EPEATs, SNAP, Water Sense, the low VOC. So if you're looking for a certain type of product, say we're looking at something, some type of like automotive type product, and you want to look and see if there's anything that's bio-preferred, which would be soy. You could click on that box. You can click on the SNAP approved, and you could click on low VOC and the biodegradable, like on those 4 boxes. And what it'll do is it'll search all the vendors that have products that have all those 4 of those attributes in one or in part of them, all 4 of them programs. So it kind of really like streamlines your search instead of going through pages and pages. Okay? So you're going to enter your product in the search box up there at the top, and then you're going to click on a box for a specific environmental category, or if you want to search all of them, you just leave it as it is and hit the search. Since one of the things that we are mandated and everybody purchases is copier paper, so we're going to do some shopping with some copier paper. So we're going to type the copier paper in there, and we're going to check all categories. We want to see what kind of paper is out there and what kind of different programs it belongs to. So when you click on that and do the search, you come up here and you get a list of all these different types of copier paper. And you can go through and see they all look like they're pretty much the same. On the right-hand side, you've got, at the bottom, you've got some different symbols, little different icons. This one tells you exactly what the product is. Some of them are through Ability 1, some are through the ARRA. The recycle symbol, it means that it's a CPG compliant item. So we're just going to scroll down and find what paper looks good to us. And we found this opaque copy paper, 24 pound, that looks good to us. When we looked at the little icons, we can see the one that says BPA, which means it's under a blank purchase agreement, which is good for office supplies. It's also CPG compliance, and part of the ARRA program and the disaster recovery. So this is the one we want to look at, and we want to see who else has this paper, the same exact paper, and what are their different prices and shipping times. So by clicking this little blue button here that says buy or compare, we can shop by price, vendor, and shipping time. So when you click on that, this brings you up to the new screen, and what this does is this gives you a list of all the different contractors that have this particular paper and their different attributes. So we can scroll down, and we found a ream of paper for $7.04. And as we follow through, we see it's part of a BPA. And then there's another little icon there. It's a little yellow diamond with the Z in it. And that one tells us that the item is on sale, and depending on where it's being shipping to, there may be increased shipping costs. So we want to keep that in consideration as we're looking through. We also see that under this one tab here, column is labeled green. So that's going to tell you all your green attributes to it about it. And it's going to say that it's CPG compliant, and that it's also Green Seal certified. And then we go over, and then it tells you your delivery times. It's 3 to 4 days delivered, and the minimum purchase for this company is $50. So, all right, we're going to go ahead. We're going to check this out, but we want to know if we're going to have an increased shipping cost. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to click on it and highlight it so you can add it to your cart. So what you're going to do, you're not making a purchase of yet. You're still just doing some research. You're going to enter the number of quantity that you're wanting to purchase. We're going to go ahead and we're going to purchase 10 reams of this. So we're going to put 10 in and then click Add to Cart. And then it'll automatically bring you up to the zip code box. You put in your zip code of the destination, and it'll tell you, put your zip code in and then click it, and then it'll tell you exactly how much the paper is going to be for your location. So I put in my zip code in here, and it tells us that the BPA pricing is not going to change. It's still going to be $7.04 a ream at 10 for the quantity. So we're going to go ahead and get with this. This meets all of our qualifications. So we're going to go ahead and hit continue shopping. Or if you're done, you can hit checkout. This is where, if you're just doing some research and you're looking to just get an idea of what type of product, maybe your supervisor or somebody else has asked you to look up a product, but you don't have purchasing authority, I would still suggest that you get a GSA Advantage account. And it has a couple of really neat features, tracking features and parking cart features. So you can either enter your GSA account now, or you can create an account. If all you're doing is just some research and you want to get some basic information, you can stop at this point here and just take what you had on the last screen. But we're going to go ahead and put in our account information. And when you put in your account information, it gives you an order summary, and it has all your payment information, which it stores, and your customer information. You just double check your shipping address. And if as long as everything on here is okay, then you can hit your process order. The back to cart is if there's something, oh wow, somebody just came in and said I need to order something else, this will take you back and you can continue shopping. This next button here in the middle, the park cart feature, is really nice. If you don't do your actual purchasing, maybe you're just doing research for something for somebody else and they're going to actually use their credit card to purchase it, you can eliminate a lot of time and hassle of having the same person, another person look up the same item you just did by putting it in a park cart. And what this does is saves your order. You're allowed to give it a name and a password. So if I wanted to order some certain products, but I want Unsook to pay for it, what I can do is put all this stuff in my cart, give it a name, supplies, and then email Unsook the information saying, you know, I have an order, will you please place this order for supplies? The cart's name is supplies, and here's the password for it. She can go in through her GSA account, pull up this park cart, and there's my whole complete order right there. All she does is the final submitting of the payment. So it's really kind of neat, and then it also will track your order for you. Up at the very top, there's little tabs that say order history and stuff like that, and it will, and I thought it was only for 1 year, and I found out this morning that it will track your order from the very first time you place an order with GSA Advantage. So that's a really nice feature. If, you know, somebody's looking for a piece of paperwork that got misplaced or something, or somebody asks you, you can always go back in through your order history and pull it back up without having to go search for some official paperwork. So once you get everything done, you go ahead and you put in all of your payment information. Then you're going to get your confirmation. And this is really kind of important to print out and keep with the DI one and everything, because if you're tracking green purchases, this eliminates the question of whether or not, did I purchase something that made it green or not? Because you're going to have your icon show up on your receipt that tells you these circles of arrows are the CPG compliant, the green seal certified, which will make it a green purchase, and then you're covered under your disaster recovery and the ARRA as well. So this is your order confirmation and tells you exactly who you ordered it from and everything else. And like I said, I would print this out for your records. Is there any questions?
Great. Thank you, Lorena. That was great. Lots of useful information. And so we will open it up for questions for Lorena. Lori, it's been a quiet group today, so I think you covered lots of great information, and want to make sure that people are able to give you a call or drop you an email if they have a question. I actually have your contact information included on the screen now, so I hope that's okay.
That's great.
Great, and I should mention also, Lori's done a couple of webinars for us that Fred mentioned, and she not only does a great job of walking us through the GSA Advantage, but has a lot of very, very comprehensive knowledge about cleaners. She's greened her cleaning supplies at her site, and so that's another reason to give Lori a call or drop her an email to see what kinds of green cleaning products she's using and strategies that she's used. So are there questions? Okay, so with that, thank you, Lori, very much, and I'll look forward to talking with you again soon. Thanks so much, Lori.
All right, thank you. You guys have a great day.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye. So I will take just a couple minutes to switch over back to my portion of the presentation. I appreciate all of you sticking with us, all this time, and let's see, we're going to look at where else. So Lori talked about GSA Advantage as a great source for finding green products. And just one thing that I'll add to is that there are a lot of symbols that are indicated on the GSA Advantage, and I think many of those claims and labels are fine, but I would say use a little bit of caution as you deal individually with the vendors. Make sure that they can substantiate the claims that are being made through GSA. GSA certainly does not have the resources to go check vis-a-vis those claims for each of the vendors. So it's something that still needs to be done. So where else can you look to find green products? Well, I talked about a bunch of these government programs that have set standards or guidelines. And the good news is that many, if not all, of these programs keep a listing of products on their website, products that have met the standards that they have established. And in your participant guide, you'll get a list of all of the URLs associated with these programs. So I do recommend that you take a look at that. So that's another source of finding the products that you are looking for. I'm going to take a look at very specifically at the preferred products catalog. I mentioned that they've been very active working with the vendors and working with federal agencies to encourage purchase of bio-preferred products. And they have a really great website that has an online catalog that you can visit. There are two aspects of the bio-preferred program. There is the Federal Procurement Preference Program, which I talked about at great length. They also have a Certified Product Labeling Program. So similar to the other third-party programs that you've heard about, the USDA has a Certified Products Labeling Program for bio-based products. So they work with a third party that goes out and certifies claims that have been made by vendors, and then they will they will award a label on those products that meet the specified designation for minimum content that has been set by USDA. So it's another level of scrutiny that has been applied to those products. So let's take a look. So again, it's a little bit difficult to see, but they have listing by different categories, all the designated products. So I need to take a look at the general purpose household cleaners to see what kind of products came up. And so when you click on it, you have quite a long list of products that comes up through their catalog. So these are all products that are out there that meet the USDA's designation for the bio-based content. You'll see there that, let's see, this one that I've circled has both the FP designation as well as the little round symbol, and that's the eco-label for bio-based that I talked about. So this particular product has both of those. So I thought, well, that's something worthwhile checking. It has another sort of level of certification with that logo. So when you look at click on that, you are brought to additional information for that particular product, including the product name, company name, the contact for that company, the product website, as well as a description and the application of the product. So a lot of good information that's in USDA's product catalog. Another place to find products that have received certification is to go directly to those third-party certifying organizations. So here I have Green Seal as just one example. There are others, of course, but this is just to illustrate a point of what they're making available through their websites. So for Green Seal, I wanted to take a look at cleaning products. And again, it's really difficult to see, but when you pull up the little pull-down menu, you can select those products that have received, or categories of products that have received the third-party certification. So they have a standard that they've developed, Green Seal, for paints and coatings. So I wanted to take a look at that. So you click on that, and again, you're brought to a list of all the companies and the specific products that have received that certification from Green Seal. So with that, let's see. If you want to take a look at a comprehensive list of standards and sort of product guides that have been developed by both the federal government sources as well as third-party sources, you can go to EPA's EPP database that's available through the URL there. It's a little confusing. It does not have anything to do with Yosemite Park. It's just the URL that they came up with when EPA created that project. So that's the URL for you to check out the list of quite a large set of standards and specifications that have been developed by various programs. Oops. So now I'm going to turn it over to Fred, who is going to talk about various resources that are available to you as you begin or as you continue on your road to making your purchases greener. Fred?
Thanks, Unsuk. First thing we're going to do is show the inside NPS page. And, you know, having done this the hard way for years now, going down through the programs and about 5 steps, we found a little bit easier way to do it. In that box, you can just search for environmental purchasing or type in our SOCC library, and you will get to our page where we have various tools listed. So once again, in that search box, it kind of, even though it says Google on it, I believe, it kind of keeps it internal to the inside. And there you'll find on the SOCC library, you'll find our handbook on environmental purchasing and its little kit with various guidances to aid in IDing green products. And we're in the process of updating that as much more information has come to light. And links to past webinars on green procurement are also there. There's also going to be links to some of the regional resources that were mentioned earlier, like the Midwest and Southeast region environmental products databases. And as I mentioned earlier, the Southeast region is in the process of updating their database to make it much more friendly. And of course, there's some tracking tools there as well. You saw Brian Cook's name. He's a Southeast regional sustainability coordinator, and he's the one in charge of this regional green procurement tool. And they're soliciting, I guess, candidate products right now. And the products go through a review that looks at some of the things that Unsuk talked about to see whether the green claims associated with those products are indeed what they claim to be or what they say they are. And then once these products go through these assessments, they're listed in the database.